In these lessons we'll learn how to sit and stand with the acoustic and the electric guitar and some tips to make that easier. We'll look at how to hold your pick and where to place your right arm. We'll go over how to use your left hand and how to fret notes correctly. And we'll do some exercises with picking and strumming so you get the feel and how it works. Now these lessons are really important. This is where we start to create habits for the whole time we'll be playing. You don't want to be playing for 6 months, realise you've been doing it wrong, and then have to come back and start again. So if you need to, watch these lessons a few times, and once you've been playing for a while, come back and watch them again. So let's get into it. Now let's see how to sit with the guitar. First, get yourself a comfortable chair, preferably one without arms. Then take your right leg, or if you're left-handed, your left leg, and get that horizontal to the floor. So don't have it pointing down. We want it up, and that'll stop your guitar from sliding off. If you need to, get yourself a footstool or sit in a low chair. Next, take the curve of the guitar and place that on your right leg and have the guitar against your body. Don't lean the guitar back, which you'll want to do at first because you want to look at the strings. But this will create a bad habit and it makes it difficult to fret your chords or to reach the top strings when you're playing. So straight up and down, not leaning it back, or don't have it away from your body. With our neck, don't have that pointing towards the ceiling or don't have it pointing down to the ground. We want it fairly horizontal or pointing up slightly is okay. With your right arm, have that on the guitar and that'll help stabilize it. When you first start it, it's going to feel like it wants to move around a bit and this will stop that. Now I'll go into much more depth with what our right arm is doing and how to hold your pick in the next few lectures. For now, we just want the guitar in the right position. So let's go over sitting with the electric guitar. Sitting with the electric guitar is the same as sitting with an acoustic. Get your right leg up so the guitar doesn't slip off. Place the curve on your right leg and have it against your body. Same as the acoustic guitar. Don't lean it back to look at the strings. Keep it straight up and down. Don't have the neck pointing down to the ground or pointing up too high. Have it fairly horizontal or sitting up a little bit, whatever's comfortable for you. Take your right arm, have that on the guitar, falling naturally between your pickups, not up on the neck or right back on the bridge. So you can see it's the same as the acoustic guitar. One last thing, try and be comfortable when you play. If you find your back is getting sore, your arms hurt, change the position you're sitting in. If you're getting aches and pains, you won't want to practice. Now just before we finish, let's have a look at sitting in a classical position. Now you may have seen some people sitting in a classical position. So with this we put our left leg up on a footstool and we take the curve of the guitar and we place it on our left leg instead of our right. Now I wouldn't suggest sitting like this if you're a beginner. You have to stretch further to get to the top of the neck and you have to twist your wrist around to reach the top strings. You'll find you sit up straighter and if you're playing for a long time, your back can get sore. Give it a go when you've been playing for a while, just don't start out this way. Now that we know how to sit with the guitar, let's learn how to hold the pick and what our right arm is doing, and we'll do some picking exercises as well. When it comes to holding the pick, there really isn't a right or wrong way. Have a look at some of your favourite players. You'll notice they all do it slightly different. So I'm going to show you a really common way to hold your pick and what works for me. Now the most important part of holding the pick is to have the point at right angles to your thumb. So take your pick, put that out in front of you, have the point of the pick pointing towards the headstock. If you're left-handed, it'll be the other way. Take your thumb straight up and down and put that against the pick. Now don't have the pick up too high. We want to be able to see part of our thumb at the top. So now we have a nice right angle between the pick and our thumb. If you have it pointing towards the top of your thumb, you'll find you have to twist your wrist around to get it to point towards the strings, or if you have it pointing downwards, again you'll have to get in an awkward position to get to the strings. So now we know where the pick goes against our thumb. What do we do with the rest of our fingers? So take the side of your index finger Now you can hold it anywhere around the last joint there, whatever feels most comfortable. Just bend it down until you can grab the pick. Now hold it after the third knuckle joint. If you want to come back a little bit, that's okay. Now the other three fingers we leave sticking out because we can anchor them on the guitar and it makes it easier to identify what string you're playing. Now some people tuck their fingers under, and if that feels comfortable for you, that's okay. What we don't want to do is make a fist and then stick our pick in. Makes it too difficult to palm mute properly. Now don't hold the very end of the pick. There's a good chance you'll drop it and it's hard to control. Also, don't choke up on the pick, so there's only a tiny little bit sticking out. You'll miss the strings when you're playing. Hold it fairly firmly and have about 1/2 inch or 1 centimetre sticking out. Last thing, don't hold it with 2 fingers. You'll find you have to bend your wrist around to get it to point towards the strings. Now if you have a slight variation on this and it's been working for you, stick at it. Now let's have a look at our right arm. With our right arm, place that on the guitar where it naturally falls over your sound hole or your pickups. Don't have it right up on the neck or back here on the bridge. Now we don't want to be reaching around the guitar or coming right over the top. If your arm is on the guitar, it'll help stabilize it. When you first start playing, it feels like it wants to move around, so this will stop that from happening. Now if you find when you put your arm on the guitar, it's coming up onto the neck, don't bend your wrist back to try and get it in the right spot. Lift from your shoulder and move your whole arm back there so you're over your sound hole. Next we want everything straight from our elbow down. So imagine a line running down through your arm, down your wrist and down your thumb. So our wrist isn't bent out. If you're bending it out, it's hard to identify what string you're using. Keep your hand close to the strings but not on them, and your arm on the guitar. So let's have a look at that from a different angle. So you can see my arm is straight from my elbow down my wrist. It isn't bent out and my thumb is straight with the pick at the right angle with the point pointing towards the strings. So you can see if my wrist is bent, I can no longer have the pick in the right spot. I have to point it towards the strings. So keep it all straight from your elbow, down through your wrist, down your thumb, with your pick at right angles, pointing at the strings. Now the last few tips before we do some exercises. You can anchor your fingers on the guitar when you're picking individual strings. Don't use your whole arm. It's little movements when you're picking from your wrist. It's different when we're strumming chords. You can still leave your fingers out, but don't anchor them on the guitar. And this time when we're strumming, we use from our elbow down, and you can use a little bit of your wrist as well. Now when you first start picking, you want to angle your pick slightly so it's not completely flat on the strings. If it's angled, it'll glide over the strings and you won't have to push as hard to create a sound. To do that, all you have to do is bend your thumb slightly. When you're playing, don't pick too deeply, just to the end of the pick. So pick gently using little movements. Now I find when a lot of beginners start playing, they pick outwards. And when you're doing that, it's hard to control how hard you're picking, and it's hard to identify what string to come back to. So just pick gently towards the ground. Make sure you're not picking outwards there. To help that, you can rest your pick on the string under the string you've played. So if I was playing my top E string, I push down through and let the pick rest on the A string or the string underneath. If I was playing my D string, I do the same thing. Push through, pick on an angle, and let it touch the G string underneath. So let's have a look at sitting with the electrical guitar. When you sit with the electric guitar, we hold our pick the same way, between your thumb and first fingers, right angles to your thumb, and your fingers out. Our right arm placement is the same as the acoustic guitar. We put it against the guitar, falling naturally between the neck and the bridge. So in between your pickups there, you still want a straight line from your elbow down through your wrist and down your thumb. So when you play the electric guitar, all the rules still apply. The only difference is your arm is closer to your body because the guitar's thinner. So let's try some exercises. With this first exercise, we're just going to pick each string 4 times. We're going to start at the top and work our way down to the bottom. We're not going to worry about our left hand. We can just place it on the guitar to stabilise it. Keep your fingers out and you can use them as an anchor on the guitar. Remember, pick downwards, little pick movements and gently. Let's give it a go. And stop. And I'm just using my hand to stop the string from ringing. 5th string. And stop. 4th string. Stop. 3rd string. 2nd string. And finally our bottom string. This is not a really hard exercise, but try it a few times just to get the feel of the guitar and the pick on the strings. This second exercise, we're going to try strumming the strings. We're not going to worry about our left hand again, we're just going to place it on our guitar. We're going to leave our fingers out, but this time we're not going to anchor them. When we're strumming, we're going to strum from our elbow and also use our wrist, as before, lightly and straight down to the ground. Let's give that a go. When you're doing this exercise, try and hit all the strings. Don't hang on to your pick too tight. Let it move a little bit in between your fingers so it's sort of bouncing over our strings. If we hang on to it real tight, you're going to find you're hitting the strings really hard and you get quite an ugly sound when you're doing that. So just straight down, fairly lightly. Let's have a look at what our left hand is doing and where we position our thumb and how to fret notes. That just means where to place your finger on the fretboard. So the first thing you need to do is cut your fingernails back on your left hand. We don't want them coming over the tips of our fingers. Next we'll name our fingers. So 1st, 2nd, 3rd and 4th, we don't include the thumb. So that just means when I say use your first finger, you'll take your index finger and place that on the fretboard. When you play, you want to be on the tips of your fingers. You don't want to be coming across here. Stick to the top of your finger. When you put your left hand on the guitar, curl your fingers over. Don't have them straight here. Now the best way to get the correct hand position is to start off your guitar. Get your fingers and thumb and make a puppet. Have your thumb behind your 1st and 2nd finger. Now place that under the neck of the guitar and just lift that straight onto the neck and bend your fingers over slightly. Try and have a gap between your palm and the neck of the guitar. Now we also want our fingers straight to the frets. We don't want them on an angle. When you do that, your thumb goes on an angle as well. If you're doing that, you lose all your stretch. So your fingers straight to the frets there. With your left arm, keep it close to your body. Don't tuck it in hard or have it sticking out here. Again, that'll put your fingers on an angle. Now a common problem I see with beginners is they have their wrist too high. So it's over the top of the neck. Their thumb comes over the top and you'll struggle to reach the top strings with your fingers. So we want your wrist below the neck, down here. That way you can stretch your fingers out and reach the top strings really easily. So let's have a look at our thumb. Now where we place our thumb is important, and this will affect your playing if you get it wrong. We want it to be straight, not off to the side or coming over the top of the neck. Also, don't push too hard. Have the top of your thumb line up with the top of the neck of the guitar, staying behind your 1st and 2nd finger. Now it doesn't matter if it's not in this exact height, but in that general area is fine. Now when you're moving your left hand up and down the neck, your thumb always follows, stays behind the first and second finger. You don't want to anchor your thumb and just move your fingers. Again, you'll lose all your stretch and it's hard to move quickly. Now let's have a look at fretting some notes. So fretting the notes is fairly easy. Take your puppet, put it under the neck and place it straight on. Bend your fingers over, have them straight to the frets and your thumb straight, not off to the side. When we do this, we want our fingers to stretch out. Don't bunch them together. If you can, try and have a finger per fret. Now I know if you've got smaller hands, that's a little bit harder, so don't worry too much. Now when you fret a note or play a note, we want to be just behind the fret, or in the middle is okay. If you're at the back, you'll get string buzz, or if you're on the fret, you won't get the right sound. When you're fretting a note, keep your other fingers close to the fretboard. Don't have them tucked under the neck, or don't have them sticking out too much. It makes it hard to get to the next note. The last thing, don't push too hard when you're playing a note. You'll find you'll hurt your fingers and you'll start pulling the string down or pushing it up, which will put the note out of pitch. We want to keep the string straight whenever we're playing and our finger just behind the fret. Now when you start, your fingers will hurt, but that'll go away over time. So let's try some exercises. First, come up to your 7th fret, so your 3rd dot, or just count up 7. We're going to place our first finger on the 3rd string from the bottom. So count up 3 and place your finger on there. Just behind the fret, as we said, keep your thumb straight. Try and keep a gap between your hand and the neck of the guitar. Get your right hand, fingers out, relaxed, picking straight down, not picking hard. And let's try that 4 times. So hopefully you've got a nice clean sound like that. Also try that in different spots on the fretboard. Let's come to our 5th fret now and we'll go to our 5th string. So again, first finger, 5th string from the bottom on our 5th fret. Place our finger just behind the fret, not at the back. Get your right hand ready and let's try that 4 times. Hopefully you got a good sound again. Let's try one more. Let's come up to our 12th fret. So our double dots, and we'll go on our 4th string from the bottom. Again, get your finger as close to the fret as possible. Get your right hand ready, fingers out and relaxed. And now I'm bending my fingers in a little bit just so it makes it a little bit easier for you to see what I'm doing. With this second exercise, we're going to try using 2 fingers. Before we start, we're going to place our first finger on. Once we've played the notes with our first finger, we're going to change to our second finger. We lift our first finger off when we change. We don't have to hold it down the whole time. When we go back, we do the same. We lift our second finger and go back to our first. You have to do this together, otherwise you're going to get an open string ringing in between. So once again, first finger down. When I change to my second finger, I lift my first finger up. Then when I go back, changing from my second finger back to my first finger, I lift my second finger up. So let's go up to the 5th fret, onto the 3rd string from the bottom. We're going to play on the 5th fret using our first finger 4 times, and then we're going to place our second finger onto the 6th fret and play that 4 times. Get your right hand ready for your picking and let's give it a go. So as you can see, we keep our fingers close to the fretboard so we don't have to be moving in and out, and there's not a lot of movement going on between the changes of my first and second finger. We also kept our thumb straight, and let's try that again. This time we'll go to the 7th fret and we'll go on our 2nd string, so down the bottom. Remember, as we're moving, keep your thumb behind the 1st and 2nd finger. Once again, 4 times, and then move to the 8th fret and play that 4 times. So hopefully you got a nice sound out of that. Stick at it, you'll get there. Now if you want to stand with the guitar, there really isn't much to it. I've seen people overcomplicate this when they say the guitar is not in this exact height, it'll ruin your technique, or it's a little bit lower, that's no good. This is not true, just get comfortable. Everyone's built differently, so if you've got shorter arms, you'll have your guitar up a bit higher, or if you're a bit taller, you'll have your guitar a little bit lower. Don't have your guitar too high, it makes it hard to see what you're doing, and don't have it right down on your knees either. It's difficult to get your hand around to fret the notes. Now when you're standing, don't have the neck of the guitar pointing up too high or pointing down to the ground. It's hard to get your hand around when you're doing that. Have it at about this angle. When you're sitting down, you'll have it a little bit more horizontally. When you're standing up, we need it up a little bit higher so it's easy to get your hand around. We hold our pick the same way, just using our thumb and 1st finger at right angles to your thumb. Your arm will still rest on the guitar. And we still want the imaginary line running from our elbow down through our wrist, down our thumb. Now it's a good idea to get used to standing up and playing. Most gigs you do, you'll be standing, and it does feel different to when you're sitting down. So to sum up, we learn how to sit with an acoustic and an electric guitar, get your right leg up with the curve of the guitar on your leg and against your body. Don't lean your guitar back, and have the neck fairly horizontal, not up too high or down too low, with your right arm on the guitar. Then we looked at sitting in a classical position and why this is not great for a beginner. Next we learned how to hold the pick at right angles to your thumb, not too high, and holding it with your thumb and index finger, and have your other fingers sticking out. And try not to hit the strings too hard when you're playing. We went over where to place your right arm, so on the guitar, falling naturally over the sound hole or in between your pickups. We don't want that on the neck or back on the bridge. And have a straight line from your elbow down through your wrist, down your thumb. Next was our left hand. We numbered our fingers, 1, 2, 3 and 4. We made a puppet and placed that on the neck with our thumb straight, fingers straight to the frets and then bent over. Try and have a gap between your hand and the neck. Wrist down, not over the top. We went over how to fret notes. So to the front of the fret, not the back or on the fret, just pushing hard enough to create a sound. Try not to pull the string down or up when you do this. With our right and left hand, we did 4 exercises so you get the feel for the guitar. The last thing we did was how to stand. Looking at our checklist, we need to know how to sit with the guitar, how to hold the pick, and where and how to position your right arm, how to position your left hand, where your thumb goes, and finally how to stand with your guitar. Now this is an important section, so watch it a few times if you have to. We need to get everything right here.